What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the All Things Basketball podcast. This special kind of extra portion of the original Big Blazers deep dive, one of you guys dropped it in the comments and said that you would love to see the contract part of it. So this one is for you and anyone else that maybe wanted to see that part. And so look, I ain't Bobby Marks from ESPN. All right, so let me just lay that type of foundation down, right? I just want to preface this entire thing by saying that. So let's jump right into it. All right, so I'm going to start from the top down. We're going to go with Jrue Holiday. I'm looking at Spotrac right now, which I'll show on the screen. But Jrue Holiday is 35 years old, right? And this guy has been in the league for 17 years. This guy was the 17th pick in 2009. And as a 6'4" guard who's played 17 years, he's still one of the best defenders in the league, which is just unbelievable. Like, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jrue Holiday. And this is a two-time champion. He is a two-time gold medalist with a major rotational role on those Olympic teams. Like, this isn't some free farmer that just sits right and just like enjoys the experience of being on a stacked team and barely contributes. This guy had the 5th highest minutes per game played in the most recent Olympic run, which was in 2024. He had the 2nd highest minutes per game in 2020. He went to Tokyo. And it's just like he's been this guy his entire career of whatever you need me to do, coach, I'm going to do it at a high level. You need me to knock down threes, I'm going to knock down threes at 38%, which is what he sits at right now in the season. You need me to guard the opposing best player, I'm going to do it regardless of position for the most part. Like, when he was on the Celtics, there were some strategic moments for Joe Mazzulla where he would put him on a Joel Embiid, right, to kind of bait a player into some individual kind of isolation offense. And then Jrue Holiday is just so strong with that low center of gravity, and he's just able to get to that ball if you're very loose with it, if you're not as tight, if you're not focused. And he's just this pest that can really do a lot of damage at multiple positions. And he's just this incredible defender still to this day at his age and size. And so I feel like there isn't enough respect for a guy like Jrue Holiday. You know, I know a lot of people appreciate him, but I feel like when you talk about these guys that have been in the NBA for so long, this guy's been in the league for almost 2 decades, and he's still like pretty much just as good as he's been for the longest time. And look, he is 4th highest in scoring for the Blazers on the 4th highest attempts, so check on that. 38% from 3 basically leads the team if you take away Rob Williams' tiny sample of like 7 made threes and Scoot Henderson's like 5 games played, which, you know, that's probably going to regress a little bit percentage wise. He's 2nd in assists for them at 6.3 with the 2.6 turnovers, which is a really good ratio. And he's 3rd in steals per game for the Blazers. So like, yes, he gets paid the most. Yes, he is the oldest player on the team. I don't know if Dame might be older. I'm actually not sure. They're both 35. But look, he makes 32.4 this season, right? And look, the Blazers are in a very healthy place financially speaking. Like, they've got a lot of young, cheap contracts, right? And guys that are really producing with the contracts that they're being paid. So like for the 32.4, it sounds like a lot for Jrue, but I feel like there are not a lot of teams that can say, yeah, we'll take that contract and it's not really going to hurt us financially, right? And we're still going to compete and win a decent amount of games. Like, these guys are in the play-in in the Western Conference. And it's like Jrue Holiday's the highest paid player on the team. Like, do you want Jrue to be your number 1 highest contract? No. Do you want him to be the 2nd highest contract on the team? No. I don't even think you want him to be your 3rd highest contract, but nonetheless, this team is able to compete because of all the other kind of pieces that are here, all the other guys contributing in their own unique way. And so he makes 34.8 next season, right? And look, little by little, it's like, what do you do with his value, right? Because you don't know the kind of player that he is. It's very physically taxing with his style of play, right? It's very rugged. It's crashing for offensive rebounds. It's scrapping for loose balls, deflections, on-ball pressure, high-level defense, high usage, right? A guy that you want running your offense, right? At times, he could be your secondary playmaker. He could be your main playmaker. He can just do a lot of stuff, and he's got a lot of miles. And so with every season that passes, I don't know how teams will feel about the contract as it goes up, right? Because he makes a little more the next season. And then he's got that $37.2 million player option in 2027. And at that point, it's like, I don't think I see a team that's willing to pay him that. So he could pick it up if he cares about making that money. Or maybe he thinks, look, I've made enough money. I want to chase a title for maybe my last or couple other final seasons left that he's got. And he could probably take a cheaper deal and go somewhere else, right? And so, like, that's the whole difficulty of when you see that player option on the contract for players, because it's like you're wondering, well, how is the league gonna value him by that time? Like, I think he'll be like 37 years old, and he'll probably still be solid, right? But you just don't know, what he'll be by that point. That's 2 years down the road. And so you just have to kind of wonder what headspace he's in, what position Portland's in, right? Like 2 years from now, maybe Drew Holiday sees this as, oh, this is like a championship contender out of nowhere, and guys have accelerated development-wise faster than maybe people think, and then all of a sudden maybe he even declines that, takes a cheaper deal, and maybe another big name comes on this Portland Trailblazers team, right? Like, you just don't know. Like, this team is in a very interesting place because of some of the names that are here, right? Like, I think the Drew Holiday contract's fine because of the way that all these other contracts are kind of structured right now, right? In any other scenario, you'd probably be wanting to move him. But I feel like the veteran presence, the experience he passes down to these younger guys, showing guys how to play defense without fouling, like just having the know-how, the championship experience, the 17 seasons of experience, just good basketball, right? Just a great career, one of the great guard careers in the league. And passing that down is invaluable, right? Like, you don't really find Drew Holidays, right? Guys that can be 35 years old at point guard. They can actually start on your team, help you win a championship, do it on two sides of the ball, and, pass that down to your younger guys, right? Like, a lot of veterans are kind of on the bench sometimes, and they don't play as well. They can't really lead by example on the court, and Drew Holiday is absolutely one of those guys that can still lead by example. And I think that that's awesome for Portland. So, and then we got Jeremy Grant, right? Like, this is, in my opinion, the elephant in the room. Like, this is the guy that's been in trade rumors every season. Just me looking from the outside, like watching this kind of Portland thing every year, from an outside perspective, right? Not like an OG Portland fan. You just kind of know that he's been this guy that's like always like, oh, Portland's trying to trade him. And then it's like you kind of figure like teams probably are not willing to take in that $32 million, then $34 million, and then he's got the player option for $36 million. But he's 31 years old, and so he's in a better position age-wise than a Drew Holiday and even like a Damian Lillard. And this is like a lanky guy, right? He's got good length, he's got good size, he does a little bit of everything, right? Like I talked about on the prior pod, he's not, in my opinion, I don't think he's great at anything. I think he's just good at a lot of different things, and that's still valuable. The thing is, he's just this kind of underwhelming experience of a player that I've experienced watching, where it's like he'll drop 30 and then you kind of don't know where he's at sometimes. And, that's kind of been the experience. Like, he'll show you why he's got this big contract, and then he'll show you why you really want to try to get rid of the contract. And so, but luckily for Portland, again, they're in this pretty healthy financial situation across the board where they can hold on to him and be like, no, we can compete, and maybe he can build up his value, and then we'll trade him then. And it's like, maybe you can trade him as an expiring contract, right? Like, maybe he'll be more valuable then because he'll still be relatively young, right? He'll be like 32 years old or maybe 33 with like a year left. And he's still this like switchable, sizable guy that can do a little bit of everything. And hopefully by that point in time, that contract won't be so bad with how much the cap has gone up, hopefully, right? So like that type of scaling that you kind of put in your head, like, okay, well, maybe the contract to scale won't look as bad in a couple of years. I don't know, right? Like, that's just me optimistically thinking about the Jeremy Grant thing. But like, Portland's also in a place where they can hold on to him, right? And maybe he does pick up that player option, right? Because I definitely don't think teams are going to be paying him that $36 million, right? Or more. Right, so it's like maybe he picks it up if he wants that money. Same scenario with Drew Holiday. Or maybe he's like, dude, I've had enough of this, like, being in the middle of the pack, right? Like, solid team, but not great enough to get over the hump. and maybe he just wants to go ring chasing, even though this guy can absolutely like produce off the bench. Like if this guy was on a like a $20 million deal, he'd be one of the better bench players in the league because he is this good. You know, it's just when you look at it at 34 million, that's when you start scratching your head and you're like, man, like this guy's 20% of our cap, you know, and that's rough to look at, right? And in this apron kind of situation for the league, a lot of teams are just more scared to take in these big contracts, right? And then it just restricts them from making future moves. And I don't think Jeremy Grant's the kind of guy that you take in and say, okay, we're happy with being restricted from a cap flexibility standpoint, but we have Jeremy Grant, right? So it's like, I don't know, you know, he may just sit in Portland and take the player option and then expire, you know, like that could totally happen. Like there is one thing here, like a sneaky part of this contract situation for the Blazers that I don't think a lot of people have mentioned. DeAndre Ayton's in the books still, right? For this season, like it's that 25 million. And so that's done after this year. Like that's 16% of their cap right now. And it's like once that leaves, they've just opened up a big chunk of salary room. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that extra space, right? You know, whether they extend some of these people, that's going to give them a little more room to breathe and like figure things out. And all of a sudden next season, they're going to be in another healthy contract situation. And next season, they'll have Damian Lillard, who's going to be on an awesome contract as well. So we'll see what he looks like. Obviously, he just won the 3-point contest again. You know, one of his strengths obviously is the strengths that Damian Lillard is going to bring to this team. Hopefully, if he's like at least like 80% of himself after this like rough injury for a guard, especially a guard that plays like him, you know, for what he's going to bring, that is a steal of a contract. And talking about steals of a contract, Deni Avdija is 9.3% of this team's cap room. That is honestly just unbelievably incredible. Like when I'm looking at Denny's contract and you see him like to scale with some of these other guys in that range, it's Daniel Gafford, it's Trey Mann, it's Marcus Smart, Jayshawn Tate, Jordan Clarkson, PJ Washington. Like he's in this 9%-ish cap of his team tier, right? And it's just like he is this all NBA level player who just made the All-Star team. He may make all NBA this season. And they have this guy making just nothing, right? Relative terms, right? Because 14 million, that'd be nice to have. And look, they've got him for that much. And on top of that, it's a descending contract, right? Like that's another thing that you can shout out the Washington Wizards for, right? Like here it is, right? 13.1 the season after that. And then there's 11.8. And it's like Portland's going to absolutely extend him, right? He's extension eligible. They're going to figure that out. And that's definitely when they'll see the real pain of paying, right? Because this guy's going to be worth a lot of money for sure. And look, the Damian Lillard contract next season is going to make things pretty easy. And look, Dame, like before moving on from Dame, he has a player option for 14 million. And so I wonder, like, look, he's 35 right now. I think he'll be like 37 by that point for the player option. And it's like, okay, what does a 37-year-old, same question with like the Drew Holiday thing. What does a 37-year-old post Achilles tear, a lot of mileage, Damian Lillard look like at that age? And will he pick up that player option? You know, will he decline and sign like a big deal, right? And like Portland honoring him, kind of the way the Lakers did with Kobe, right? Which really killed them in the long run. You know, that will be interesting to see. I would love to see Lillard just kind of pick that option up and just be like, look, like I want to compete where I got drafted. I've been here basically my whole career outside of when he got traded to Milwaukee. Let's see, you know, like what can I do if I just pick up this cheap deal? Denny will be getting paid at that point, most likely. Who knows about Jeremy Grant and Holiday if these guys are still here? But assuming they've got a ton of salary by that point, he could absolutely take a cheap deal. And maybe we're looking at a powerhouse in Portland, plus the development of some of these guys that are on this team right now. You know, so, you know, there's just a lot of interesting outcomes by 2027 that Portland could really find themselves in. And then I'm moving down to Rob Williams, right? Where it's like, okay, he has been this injury-prone center, right? But man, when he's out there, he is a game changer, especially for the Portland Trailblazers. Like I talked about on the pod prior, it was like, you know, he brings that defensive flexibility, even offense, because if he's actually like shooting the ball from the outside. And it's just this guy that's very switchable at the 5. And he can just guard multiple positions. He can get out there on the perimeter and switch up on the pick and rolls and really show some ball pressure, not give up too much space, get back into plays and block shots, clean up some mishaps if other guys are getting beat. And it's just like this guy has like a lot of tools and athleticism still at 28 years old, right? And yes, he's had, the injury problem, but it's like, I wonder what a guy like him is going to command. And do the Portland Trailblazers maybe worry about their center depth, right? Because you never know, what moves they'll make in the offseason. Like, that stuff is just impossible to predict. But it's like maybe Rob Williams likes the Portland situation. And look, the fan base is very supportive of their teams. What's also going to help Portland with this contract negotiation thing is I don't know how many teams are going to be like overpaying for Rob Williams, right? Especially with this apron stuff that I constantly talk about, because it's a guy that, at best, he's probably going to be your backup big, right? And he's may or may not be available most of the time of the duration of his contract, right? Like, you worry about that as well. Like, obviously you're paying him because you know what he's capable of. Like, this is a guy that he should be making a lot more money. He could be making all defensive teams, right? Like, over and over again because of that versatility. But it's the injury. Like, that's the only thing that's holding this guy back from making a lot of money and from getting all these accolades, right? Because he's definitely just this really good defensive center that can also help you on offense with the lob catching, the rolling, the screening, even spacing the floor at a decent amount, right? But you think about his age, he hasn't played a ton. Maybe he's a little more fresh-legged. I don't know. Like, those are all the things that they got to kind of convince themselves of when they're dealing with this. But I think that letting Rob Williams go with the lack of center depth they have, that could really push them back a bit, whether you want to believe that or not. I really think that. The Matisse Thybulle contract, I don't even know what they're going to do with him. It looks like they were trying to trade him, and then I guess that just didn't work out. That's a weird scenario that I don't really have a lot of knowledge on. My guess is they're just going to let him walk. Scoot Henderson, he's still on his rookie deal. That's going to work out well for them. Look, a lot of times, like, when these guys don't show immediate success, you get a little more wiggle room contractually, right? As messed up as that sounds, like a guy like Shaedon Sharpe, you have this like superstar potential and expectation for this guy. If it depends on who you ask, right? A lot of people feel that way. And he's going to be making 20 million, 21, 23, 24 for those next 4 seasons. That's a damn good contract. Okay, for a guy that you expect to be one of the best at the position by maybe 2028, right? Like, if you're, I think that's a fair projection, right? One of the best at the position. And 22 years old, he's an incredibly young player. And it's like, man, and with the cap going up and all that good stuff, like, this is going to look like an awesome contract down the line if all of that stuff holds true. And then, you're looking at Donovan Clingan, who's still on the rookie deal, right? Not much to mention on him. Jan Hansen is a guy that he's going to take some time. Obviously, Young Hansen he just got drafted, and he's going to be a project player. Blake Wesley, he is a guy that he's on his standard 1-year deal at 2.2, and it's like he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He's really playing for that next contract. I think he's shown that he deserves at least another 1 year, which is unfortunate when you're playing on these 1 years, man. It's so much pressure on you, especially like everything, your role is so small that you have to make such an impact with that little bit of playing time. Like, you got to show effort on defense. You got to be impactful. You got to knock down the few shots you get. Like, there's just so much pressure on a contract like that, in a situation like that I really feel for Blake Wesley. I don't think there's going to be a big market for him. So I hope that Portland's able to bring him back, maybe on a 2-year, right? Maybe they do something similar to, what they did with Sidi Sissoko, which I'll talk about in a second. I think I skipped over Vit Krejci. So yeah, Vit Krejci, like, this is another guy that they have who they can extend. I don't think he's really going to command that much money. I think the league has gotten really smart about these kind of like rotational kind of like backup players that maybe aren't good enough to start, right? And it's like they get hot sometimes. You see the flaws, right? When the shot's not falling, you kind of feel like they're not really impacting the game too much, especially because he's not this like individually good defender. He's more of a team defender, not a good rebounder for his size. And so, a guy like that, you wonder, like, how much money a guy like that can command. And, it's just it's a weird scenario, but I think that for the money he makes, that's a great contract, the V. Krejci one. And Portland doesn't have to make a big decision on him yet. They don't really have to decide. Like, they've got him next season, and then they have obviously the team option, right, for $3 million in 2027-28 before he actually becomes an unrestricted free agent, which he'll be 28 by that point. And it's like, this guy is 1.5% of your cap. Like, and producing so well, like, this guy's going to space the floor for you. He's going to be one of your better shooters. He's got good size. Like, you can kind of play him in multiple positions. He can handle the ball. He can make good passes. All the good stuff I talked about him. And so, look, he's a very healthy contract for this team. And look, Ryan Rupert, they may just say, we're letting him go. He's going to be a restricted free agent. I don't know he's 21 years old. He is so young, but I feel like I haven't seen enough to make me think we need to bring him back. Like, if I'm on the Portland staff, I don't think I've seen enough out of Ryan Rupert to be like, let's take that contract in, So I don't know, and I don't know what the value is around the league. Like, these kind of guys are so hard to figure out. Like, there could be a team that just really likes him and throws a little mini bag at him to kind of try him out. And I just don't think Portland's going to compete with anyone if someone's like trying to battle for Ryan Rupert, right? Toumani Camara. This guy has been one of the more impactful players on the team, right? He's a fan favorite. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Multi-positional defender. This guy is unbelievable. He's 25 years old. The three-point shot is evolving at a good rate. He's taking like 7 threes a game, making them at a decent clip. And look, he solves a lot of problems for a team, A lot of teams would love to have Toumani Camara. I could think of like 20... every team in the league could use Toumani Camara, especially on the contract. This is a great deal for Toumani, and they've got him locked up for multiple years. Like, he makes $2 million this year. Obviously, that's going to be done with. It's 18 next season, 19.5, then 20.9, and then there's a 22.4, right? So, they've got this guy for the long haul, right? That's such a good contract for them. They're going to love that forever, right? And then we're looking at Sidy Cissoko, a guy that I was talking about on that pod, and I was like, this dude is playing like he deserves a contract. And I certainly hope that if Portland doesn't do it, that another team sees him and offers him a good deal. And Portland signs him to a 2-year deal, which made me really happy. I was so excited for him because this is a guy that was his value was dropping, even though he's a 21-year-old. But he got waived by the Wizards, like I mentioned. And it's like, when you get waived by one of the worst teams in the league, things aren't looking great for you, right? And here comes Portland. They take a gamble on this guy, and he turns out to be one of their better rotational backups, one of their better defenders, high-energy guys who's also out there scoring through the scrapping points and rebounding and things like that. And he got his well-deserved 2-year deal, right, where he's going to get a chance to kind of establish himself. You get a little comfort with those, that extra season in the books for himself, and he can kind of, understand his role now. I think now he understands what he's going to be asked to do with this Portland team, and I think it's a great situation for him. I think that this is going to be a place where he can really develop now, comfortably, right? And it's a team that already knows what he's good at, and they're willing to use him like this. Like, it's so different when you draft a guy versus when you just pick him up as a guy that no one's really looking at, and then all of a sudden he's producing, because he's not going to be an expensive player, right? He's not going to be a guy you pay a ton, and he's going to play his ass off 100% of the time. So, this is a damn good deal, and he's very productive. So I don't have the details. I was trying to look for what they're paying him, but it can't be much if they already settled on it, right? The 2-year deal. And so all in all, I'm looking at a team that they have all the reasons in the world to be like, look, let's move Drew Holiday, right? We can't pay him that. And they're also in a great financial situation to be able to keep him and let him help develop these young guys and kind of teach them the ropes, right? And not be destroyed financially in the process. The Jeremy Grant deal, it's kind of similar thing, right? A team that's in a healthy place because of the Lillard contract, because of the Denny Avdia contract right now, because of what Scoot Henderson kind of contract's going to be next season before they do the rookie extension. Donovan Clingan, same thing. Like they've just got a lot of these guys that are on these cheap deals because they're young, or some two-way guys, or some players that are kind of still trying to hold on, right, to their NBA careers. And all of a sudden it makes for a very healthy salary position for a team overall. And so, you know, I wonder, in terms of gap with the age and stuff, like what's going on, like what's the real plan? And it's like I mentioned earlier with the DeAndre Ayton, once that $25 million is off the books, they're going to have way more financial flexibility. And it's going to be very interesting because that's going to open the door to be able to be like, yeah, Rob, we'll throw you a couple extra million, right, to kind of retain you because we need him. You know, if you're Portland and you're looking, I don't know, I haven't looked at like what the free agency situation in the offseason is going to be, or what moves they can make for a backup big, someone that can help Clingan, and someone that can, you know, help you not have to rely on heavy Young Hansen minutes, because clearly he's going to need more time. And so it's like, you know, you're very light at center depth, right? Like that's the part that worries me with this team, you know. And Rob Williams absolutely answers the bell, right? Like he's been so good for them off the bench and just relieving Clingan, right? Even like when Thiago decides he can't play Clingan in certain matchups, like when teams go very small and they're running up and down the floor and spacing it out, that's when Clingan kind of sticks out like a sore thumb for now until he figures out how to guard in space, which could take a little more time. That's where Rob Williams gets deployed and makes sense alongside the team, right? That kind of thing is going to work in Rob Williams' favor negotiation-wise. I don't want to see Rob Williams go because I know how valuable he is to Portland. And look, it may sound like, it's Rob Williams, he never plays, whatever, you know, but at the same time, like you got to watch these Portland games and understand the impact that this guy brings off the bench. You know, especially in those lineups where you kind of got to pull Clingan. You can't, if you're pulling Clingan out, you're not exactly throwing young Hansen there as a solution, right? They've got a lot of questions coming up this offseason. I'll be very interested to see where they finish up draft-wise, like in the lottery. Because they are winning a lot of games, and, you know, they may not win a play-in game and fall out of that and then, you know, end up in the lottery. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with Portland. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it was in any way enjoyable or entertaining. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will catch you guys on the next one.